and welcome to the Board of Zoning Appeals for February of 2023. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We will start off tonight with prayer and pledge. If you will, please stand. Bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for tonight. Thank you for the rain, Lord. We know that the rain is needed. Sometimes it's more than we want, but we thank you for it anyway, Lord. We ask that you be with the town and all of the staff here tonight, Lord, that decisions and discernment would be used, Lord. We ask that you be with the town of Smyrna and the state as we continue to grow and continue to move forward. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Face the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mitch, looks like next item is citizens' comments. Any at this time?
There are none at this time.
All right. Number 4 on our agenda tonight is the approval of our minutes from our January 19th meeting. Those minutes are in your packets. Hopefully you've had a chance to review those. Any additions or corrections? All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion.
I'll second.
And a second. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
The minutes have been approved. Tonight we've got, it's kind of funny, it's new business, but it's not because it's, anyway. We have 4 items tonight. We have 2 setback variances and 2 special exceptions. We will start with the setback variances. Once we've done your piece or your section, if you would like to stay, you're more than welcome to, but if you would like to leave, you can go at that time as well. We'll start with Joshua Eldred, 3911 Hendricks Hill Drive.
Yeah, this is a request, exact same request as what was presented to you a couple months ago. The issue with this was a deck was constructed, putting it about 11 foot 9 inches off the rear property line. This is located within the rear setback and then also a drainage easement as well. This deck is 40 foot by 12 foot in size and connected to the home. The property has a 20-foot public utility and drainage easement along the rear property line. Public Works has had a chance to review the structure and would permit the deck to be cantilevered over the drainage easement. This would shift the supporting beams within the easement towards the house outside of the drainage easement, but would leave the deck within the airspace of the easement. There is an existing fence which encloses the rear yard as well. Section 7.080D of the zoning ordinance detail requirements for variances not involving special flood hazard areas, and these are detailed below. Zoning variance requirements, section 7.080 of the municipal zoning ordinance lists general requirements for a zoning variance request. Those requirements and staff findings are as follows. Standards for variances not involving special flood hazard areas. The board shall not grant a variance unless it makes finding based upon evidence presented as follows. The particular physical surroundings, shape, topographic conditions of the specific property involved that will result in a particular hardship upon the owner as distinguished from mere inconvenience if the strict application of this ordinance were carried out must be stated. Staff finds that the property has a uniquely shaped angled rear lot line in a pie shape and the lot location along an arced portion of Hendricks Hill Drive, which pushes the house further back on the property. The conditions upon which the petition for a variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. Due to the property location along an arc on Hendricks Hill Drive, the home is located further back on the property, closer to the rear setback line, and the uniquely shaped rear lot lines are not comparable to other lots in the same district. The variance will not authorize activities in a zone district other than those permitted by this ordinance. Attached structures are allowed by right in the R3 zoning district, but are to adhere to all applicable setbacks of the principal structure. Financial returns shall not be considered as a basis for granting a variance. The property owner has not identified financial returns as a reason for this request. The alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. The creation and size of the lot and house were not completed by the applicant. However, the structure has been constructed and completed by the applicant. That granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Staff finds that the variance requested may provide the applicant with special privileges denied by the ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the R3 district. The variance is the minimum that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. Staff finds that the requested setback variance may not be the minimum to make reasonable use of the structure for the proposed use. The structure could be constructed to meet setback requirements at a smaller size. The granting of this variance will not be detrimental to public welfare or injurious to other property or improvements in the area. Staff finds that the variance should not be detrimental to public welfare or injurious to other property or improvements in the area. The proposed variance will not impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property, substantially increase congestion in the public streets, increase danger of fire, endanger public safety, or substantially diminish or impair property values. Staff finds that the variance may not have any of the above effects, but is located above a drainage easement. Number 10 is not applicable in this case. And in conclusion, staff finds that the property does have an oddly shaped rear lot line. Having the lot located on an arc portion of Hendricks Hill Drive does push the principal structure towards the rear lot line, creating a constricted building envelope. The structure could also be reduced in size to meet setback requirements, and this was the big topic at the last time this was presented, that Public Works, the structure was located with one of Public Works' utility and drainage easements, and Public Works has indicated since that time that it would be permissible for the deck to be cantilevered and leaving the occupied area of the deck above the drainage easement. So these are pictures that were taken from the last meeting, so nothing has changed out at the site since that time. This is the deck, and the stakes are the rear lot lines, so you can kind of see the natural flow of where that easement would be located at. Then you have that portion of the deck beam that is coming down within the easement. So this is one of the beams, or a beam that would be relocated outside of that easement and cantilevered. So this portion of the deck would remain as is. You'd switch, have it engineered of sorts for the beam to be located outside of that easement at that point. And that is what Public Works did clarify that they are okay with. And this is just an overhead view of the site with that hatched area denoting the easement location. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mitch. Any questions or comments for Mitch from the board? We have discussed this one a couple of times. I think we deferred it one time, talked about it, and then come back again. So this one we're pretty familiar with it. No questions? All right.
No.
This time I'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request. Anyone that would like to, please come forward, state your name and address for our record.
Hello, Josh Eldred. I am the homeowner. I don't have too much to add based on what Mitch said. The main difference here is we are able to remove that one corner post, which is the only post that's actually in the easement and setback. Reached out to Public Works, had them come out and look at it. As they've said, they're okay with that if we're able to remove that post and support it from underneath. So that's what we're proposing. And yeah, that's it. Happy to answer any questions, but that's the.
Excellent. So the second post down, that one won't have to move?
Nope, that's
Okay, perfect.
that's outside of it.
Taking that one and moving it elsewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, the line basically goes from, it pretty much touches the corner of our house. It's, I
gotcha.
think, 1 or 2 feet off of that brick corner of the house,
I
and
gotcha.
then it's just on the inside of that second post down.
I got you, okay. All right, any questions for Josh? No?
Thank you.
Thanks, sir, appreciate it. Anyone else that would like to speak for or against this request? Not seeing anyone, we will close the Board of Zoning Appeals, close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals, trying to go home early. I think, last time we spoke, the lot is odd shaped, because of the positioning on the top of the hill there, it kind of pushes the building back. Normally, those are kind of normal hardships that we've, given these variances for in the past. The drainage easement is the caveat, and since Public Works is comfortable with the post being removed and it being cantilevered, I think the height of the deck allows them room to get under it, is probably the thought process if they had to.
And it's still within, for the applicant's knowledge, it's still within their easement, so if any work had to be done within that easement, we would proceed accordingly as any
Gotcha.
structure located within one of our easements.
So I guess there is the risk that if this got approved and they had to come in there and do something, that the deck may have to be removed or taken down at that point if something happened and they had to have that space.
Correct.
But otherwise, it would never be an issue.
Yep.
Gotcha. I'll just make sure Josh understood that just in case. So, any other questions or comments? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the requested 8-foot 3-inch rear setback. Or no, I'm sorry, the 11 is the,
Yeah, it's 8 foot 3 inches, the variance, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the 8 foot 3 inch variance. I guess with the caveat that there would be no structures in that, I guess, no, the variance is okay, right? We don't have to say anything about the post being removed or,
That's a public works deal that they've
Yeah.
been working through, and it's been engineered to.
I'm just getting at if we approve this variance, somebody else buys the house later, there's a variance of 8 foot 3 from the back line. What's that variance cover is what I want to make sure we're covered, so that someone doesn't come along later and think they can build in that variance.
You just need to state your motion that it doesn't include any permission to use the easement,
Gotcha, okay.
right?
All right.
It's really at the risk of if Public Works needs the easement, and if so, to what extent. So
Gotcha.
you may want to restate the motion
Right, so.
for clarity.
Okay, yep, so motion to approve the 8-foot 3-inch rear setback variance and not be able to use that property within the easement for any other structure. Is that what we're looking for?
We're good there, Jason, you think so?
Yeah, if the chair would restate the motion, and then you can,
Okay.
if there's a second, that'll be sufficient, and then you can take a
Perfect.
vote if so.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the 8 foot 3 inch setback with the caveat that easement cannot be used, and that Public Works remains or retains the ability to do what they need to do there. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you, Josh. Glad to put this one to bed finally. It's been a long time. All right, next item on our agenda, let me get back to my agenda here. If I can. Finalized. My iPad's trying to update. All right, next item on our agenda is Joe and Christy Salinas, 1048 Alta Vista Lane.
This is another setback variance request. This is a side setback variance request, 5 foot to place a pool 3 foot off of the side property line. Property is zone R3 and is 10,334 square feet in size. Minimum side yard setback requirements in R3 zone for any detached structures is 8 feet. There is a 15-foot drainage easement along the rear lot line in which no structures may be located. There is an existing fence which does enclose the rear yard as well, but that fence is outside of the easement. Section 7.080D of the zoning ordinance detail requirements for variances not involving special flood hazard areas, and they are detailed below. Section 7.080 of the municipal zoning ordinance lists general requirements for a zoning variance request. Those requirements and staff findings are as follows. The board shall not grant a variance unless it makes finding based upon evidence presented as it follows. The particular physical surroundings, shape, topographic conditions of the specific property involved that would result in a particular hardship upon the owner as distinguished from a mere inconvenience. If the strict application of this ordinance were carried out must be stated. Staff finds that the property has a fairly uniform shaped lot when compared to other lots in the same district. The condition upon which the petition for a variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. There is a 15-foot drainage easement along the rear lot line which does constrict the building envelope for any structures located within the rear yard. The variance will not authorize activities in a zoned district other than those permitted by this ordinance. Pools are permitted by right in the R3 zoning district but are to adhere to all applicable setbacks for detached structures. Financial returns only shall not be considered as a basis for granting a variance. The property owner has not identified financial returns as a reason for this request. The alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property after the effective date of this ordinance. The creation and size of the lot and house were not completed by the applicant. That granting the variance request will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Staff finds that the variance requested may not provide the applicant with special privileges denied by the ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the district due to the hardship listed above. The variance is the minimum that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. Staff finds that the requested setback variance may be the minimum to make reasonable use of the structure for the proposed use. The granting of the variance will not be detrimental to public welfare or injurious to other property or improvements in the area. Staff finds that the variance should not be detrimental to public welfare or injurious to other property or improvements in the area. The proposed variance will not impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property, substantially increase the congestion in the public streets, increase danger of fire, endanger public safety, or substantially diminish or impair property values. Staff finds that the variance may not have any of the above effects. Number 10 is not applicable in this case. And in conclusion, staff finds that this property is uniform in size and shape to other lots in the subdivision and other properties that are zoned R3. Detached structures and pools are required to have a minimum of an 8-foot setback from the rear and side lot lines. The property has a 15-foot drainage easement along the rear lot line in which no structures may be located. A typical drainage easement found in most lots is about 10 foot wide. The 15-foot wide easement leaves approximately 16-foot wide area for any use of the backyard at the widest point. This is a picture of the house from the street, looking down the property line. And then this is from the other lot line. So the pool will be located on the other side of the house, but this is more so captures, it's pretty tough to tell in the picture here, but there's a significant dip down in the rear lot where the easement is located at. And this is a overhead view showing a plan of what the pool would, how it would be situated in the backyard. So this darker line right here kind of denotes where the easement is, more or less. So you got the lot line sitting in the back, this 15-foot easement. Really from this point to the house is any area that could be used by the applicant for their backyard. And then this darker rectangle on this over here is where that proposed pool location would be located at. That's it.
All right, thank you, Mitch. Only question I have, I was looking at this drawing you have right here, which I think was provided by the applicant.
Correct.
I'm assuming that it's not 48 feet, but 48 inches. It says 48-foot pool and spa pool towel. I'm assuming it's 48 inches. It also says 48-foot Bellegarde Marina pool coping. Again, I would assume that's supposed to be inches, but the pool is 8 by 16, is that right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah,
was
I
making
was,
sure that.
when I was doing the report, it was more so paying attention to the dimensions of the pool. And
Yeah, that's what I really
location.
wanted to care about. I just want to make sure that we're not saying it's a 48-foot pool.
No.
I was like, that's a big one.
It's a deep plunge.
Yeah, that's a long, deep plunge. All right, any questions, comments, nothing? At this time, we'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Amber Baker. I'm with Kevin Spark Signature Pools. Our address is 2349 South Church Street in Murfreesboro. And we're the ones that are building the pool. So I
Okay.
was just opening it up for questions. That is 48 feet around of,
Oh, all the way around, linear
coping.
feet.
Yes, linear feet.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, 48 feet, what are you talking about? No, I got you, okay.
and the homeowners are here as well. So if you have any questions.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I appreciate the diagram, but it answers pretty much any questions I could have. It's got all the details there, and we appreciate that. A lot of times it's a really crude drawing, so I appreciate the fact that there's a lot of detail in there. From what I could tell, it looks like it's 8 by 16 pool with, of course, with coping and stuff around. It's a little bit larger, but
And we've tried to finagle to turn it, and we just can't hit that side setback, so.
gotcha. So you're talking about if you turn it long ways, it's still a problem?
It's gonna get into the rear setback, yep.
Okay. Any questions? Comments? No? All right, thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak for or against? Not seeing anyone, we will close the public hearing and reopen Board of Zoning Appeals for discussion and motions. Normally, drainage easement and odd-shaped lot, this is pretty common. for lots like this that have such a tight backyard. Based on this picture, it looks like their patio is 10 feet, and I guess depending on which way you're looking at the house, the right side where the sidewalk is pretty much right on the easement, even just the patio. So there isn't, with an 8-foot pool, there really isn't much they could do, I don't think, to put it anywhere else, except for maybe take out the patio and put it right behind the house, but then it'd be right up against the house, right? So, any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
That dark line that you were referring to, Mitch, is the drainage easement, is also the fence?
Yeah, it's a rough
They have-
location of it, just based on parcel lines used to create this map and such. It's in that general vicinity of it, yeah. Then the back line up here is your actual parcel line.
In the line, house side? Like-
So, yeah, this outline right here is gonna be the house.
No, at the edge of the patio, top right corner, so that's
Up here?
of the patio. So the top right corner of the patio, there's a line going across from side.
Yeah,
side
according to
side.
this drawing, this says that's the drainage easement.
Okay, so the fence is inside there.
It says it's 4 foot from the fence to the patio, and there's a dotted line right at the edge of the patio that says drainage easement.
From what the aerial picture shows with the parcel lines and such, it's rough dimensions.
Yeah.
It just, more or less to get you in the ballpark of where everything's
I
at.
gotcha.
So I wouldn't get too hung up on exact.
I think the point is that with this exception, with this variance, there's still no part of it in the drainage easement.
Correct.
Right. I think that's
That's what, yeah.
That's kind of the point.
But that is the easement right now, correct?
Yeah, right, that's what it looks like, right?
Okay.
Right along the edge there, basically.
I don't think it's touching right there, that's.
Yeah, it's just barely. It might be at the corner, but that's coping, that's not the
Mhm, so
pool.
it won't matter.
So it'd be, rock right up to it, basically, but the
Yeah.
pool's inside of that.
Okay.
It says it's 6 by 6 pool tile, I guess, and so it's at least 6 inches, at least. It'd probably be more like a foot, I would guess, in.
Okay.
Okay?
Actually zooming in there, mine.
Ball's in your court.
Yeah, I'm making sure I got that. Okay. I will make a motion to approve to allow the, is it 3 foot,
5 foot.
5 foot variance off of the side property line? Due to the drainage easement that runs through the property? Is that all you need, Jason?
I think we're good there. I have a motion for 5 foot, to approve the 5 foot variance from the side property line for the installation of the pool. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second for 5 foot variance approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion is approved.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Salinas, appreciate it. Next item on our agenda, we're gonna go to our special exceptions. We have Teresa Curry with Access Infrastructure, 7 Oaks Boulevard.
This is a special exception to allow a car wash within a C2 zoning district. This piece of property is currently vacant and located at the northwestern quadrant of the intersection at Allenville Road and 7 Oaks Boulevard. Surrounding zoning consists of C2 and PCD, which is the oil and lube shop to the west. As proposed, there would be a single access point via the shared driveway with the adjacent business to the west. 3 queue lanes would support approximately 14 vehicles, narrowing to a single aisle upon entering the building. Section 7.060B of the zoning ordinance detail the requirements for authorizing special exceptions, and they are detailed below. Section 7.060 of the municipal zoning ordinance lists general requirements for zoning variance request. Those requirements and staff findings are as follows. General requirements: a conditional use permit shall be provided the board finds that it is so designed, located, and proposed to be operated so the public health, safety, and welfare be protected. Staff finds that the proposed use of a car wash should not negatively affect the health, safety, and welfare of the public, will not adversely affect other property in the area in which it's located. Staff finds that the proposed use has the potential to adversely affect other property in the surrounding area due to noise produced from this use onto the adjacent residential single-family dwellings. The entrance to the building would be approximately 330 foot from the nearest home. It is within provisions of special exceptions as set forth in the zoning ordinance. Section 5.052.2C lists car washes and automobile detailing as a special exception within this district. Conforms to all applicable provisions of this ordinance for the district in which it is to be located, as well as provisions cited in section 7.060 and 7.061, and is necessary for public convenience and the location planned. Staff finds that the site may be able to conform to all provisions of the municipal zoning ordinance as listed in criteria review, section 7.060C. Criteria for review: prior to issuance of a special exception, the board shall make written findings certifying compliance with the specific rules governing individual special exceptions, and that satisfactory provisions and arrangements have been made concerning all the following where applicable. Ingress and egress to the property. Access to this site is proposed to utilize a single shared access drive with the adjacent track to the west. Off-street parking and loading areas. Staff finds that the development of this vacant property will increase traffic more than currently exists, thus more noise for surrounding property owners, notably the residential district to the west of this tract. Refuse and service areas. Refuse collection would need to be coordinated with a local company for proper disposal of any waste. Utilities, with reference to location, availability, and compatibility. This location does have access to gas, water, and sewer, which are located at the property. Screening and buffering. The surrounding properties are commercially zoned and would not require any additional buffer other than the requirements set forth by a design review manual. Signs, if any, and proposed exterior lighting with reference to glare, traffic, safety, economic effect, and compatibility and harmony with properties in this district. Staff finds that the proposed use of an auto wash will fit the compatibility with properties in the same district in reference to the above effects. Required yard and other open space. Staff finds that there is adequate space on this lot to support a car wash. General compatibility with adjacent properties and other property in the district. Staff finds that there are commercial uses present on adjoining parcels, as well as property being located on Almonville Road, which is a minor arterial roadway. Number 9 is not applicable in this case. And in conclusion, staff finds that a majority of the surrounding properties are commercially zoned and would fit for the use. Property is located along Almonville Road and Seven Oaks Boulevard, which are both highly trafficked. The lot is of adequate size to support this use, as well as adhering to regulations required by the design review manual and the zoning ordinance. Now, these pictures were all taken from Seven Oaks Boulevard looking onto the tract. So, as you can see, it's currently vacant at this time. This is a aerial picture showing that adjacent commercial oil and lube facility over here to the west. This is the driveway, which when this site was originally brought to us for rezoning, it was intended by all purposes to be a shared access point. So this business as designed would be using that shared access point to access their development. There would be no points of access onto Almonville Road, so in and out would be through this one area. Queue lanes queuing up to the actual building, and you have vacuums on the outside, so basically traffic would flow clockwise around and back out on the Seven Oaks Boulevard. And that's all I got.
Excellent. This, the lube, this is a place that council's recently approved. We approved that one, right?
The oil and lube?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
that
last
one.
year.
That's what I thought. That's the one we recently, last month or two. reviewed
No,
and approved.
it's been about a year.
Has it been that long?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're already
Didn't
under
realize it'd
construction.
been that long.
Yep.
Okay. I remember we had approved something over there, but they haven't started construction, right?
Yes, they are.
They have?
Yes.
Okay.
There's something else that we did recently.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
over there off General Forest or something.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Also, we're simply reviewing the exception to allow it in the C2 zone. They would still have to come through site plan, et cetera.
Correct, yep. So the
So-
first step is to allow it, being it's a
Right.
special exception within this district, it would still have to be brought to planning for a site plan review.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So my point in that is we don't have to get caught up on stacking and blow drying or any of that. That'll be covered in site plan. As long as we feel that it could be, there's a reasonable way for it to fit. That's really our concern. The details will be covered in the other meetings. Okay, questions, comments for Mitch? All right, at this time I'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Teresa Curry, 70 Mansell Court in Roswell, Georgia. And I am the applicant, so I am available to answer any questions. If you have any on our layout or traffic, lighting.
Yeah, I don't, I'm pretty familiar with this intersection. The fact that you're not going to be going out on the Elmville Road, that, kind of takes away the concerns of traffic onto that main road. Shared access, that access has already been approved, so you're not really requesting additional access. To me, generally, your layout looks okay. Planning will address, any concerns they may have. Generally, though, we're looking for things like you've included, stacking and the dryers away from residential areas, that kind of thing. So the size of the lot and the layout looks like it fits generally. So I don't have any questions specifically.
I don't either.
I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak for or against this request? Not seeing anyone, we will close the public hearing, reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals for a motion and discussion. I think we've approved several of these recently. With more people means more cars, which means more car washes, so.
Yeah.
Any concerns, questions that you guys can see? I think the area this fits, 300 or so feet to the first closest residential is kind of back into the west. There's actually the lube and existing commercial buildings between this building and that house. So the chances, I think, of there being any issues with noise from this particular facility would be blocked by some of the other buildings anyway, even if there was noise. So I don't see a concern with the proximity of the residential, which is generally what we're looking for when we're talking about C2.
We could get a little tree line in there too,
Yeah,
to
there
block
is.
it.
There is, that's not a requirement, so that could be torn down someday, but it's there right
Yeah.
now.
I don't see an issue with it.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the special exception to allow a car wash within a C2 zone.
we have a motion to approve the special exception in the C2 zone. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion is approved. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
The last item on our agenda, get back to my agenda here. All right, we have Michael and Mary Kay Matson with Illusion Needs Incorporated, 1001 Bolton Drive.
This is a request to allow a special exception request to allow an in-home business. The applicant has requested a special exception to allow an at-home business at 1001 Bolton Drive. Property is zoned R3 and is approximately 1.68 acres in size. The applicant is requesting to construct a building which would include the manufacturing, packaging, and off-site sales of mead. The structure to be constructed for the business to operate within would be 30 by 40, which is 1,200 square foot. And this is also the maximum that is allowed for detached structures on a property of this size. All sales would be conducted off-site. No customers would be visiting the property. Sales would consist of kegs, bottles, and cans to local bars, tap houses, restaurants, and online sales. Deliveries to the site would be minimal, averaging a few per month, primarily performed by the owner. Any outgoing shipments would be handled by common carriers, which would include FedEx, UPS, USPS, etc. A little background on mead. It's similar to wine in that the wine process includes fermentation of grapes, but mead is fermented from honey. The Tennessee, the TBB, the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, and TABC, the Tennessee Beverage Commission, considered mead under the same classification, governing rules and taxation as wine. All federal and state licensing and permits would be required to be obtained by the applicant if approval is granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals. Section 7.060B of the zoning ordinance detail requirements for authorizing special exceptions, and they are detailed below. Section 7.060 of the municipal zoning ordinance lists general requirements for a zoning variance request. Those requirements and staff findings are as follows. General requirements, a conditional use permit shall be provided the board finds that it is so designed, located, and proposed to be operated so the public health, safety, and welfare be protected. Staff finds that the proposed business of a meadery should not negatively affect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. The general public would not be visiting the place of business on site per the applicant. Will not adversely affect other property in the area which is to be located. Staff finds that the proposed use should not adversely affect other properties in the surrounding area if the operations are conducted per the applicant. All operations will be constructed within an enclosed building. Is within the provisions of special exceptions as set forth in this ordinance. In-home occupations are considered special exceptions within the zoning ordinance. Conforms to all applicable provisions of this ordinance for the district in which it is to be located, as well as the provisions cited in section 7.060 and 7.061, and is necessary for public convenience in the location plan. Staff finds that the site may be able to conform to all provisions of the municipal zoning ordinance as listed in criteria review section 7.060C. Criteria for review: ingress and egress to the property. Access to the site would utilize the existing driveway off of Bolton Drive. A walking path would be added by the applicant to access the building from the driveway. Off-street parking and loading areas. Staff finds that the existing driveway would provide sufficient space for off-street parking. Refuse and service areas. Refuse collection would continue in the same manner as currently. If additional refuse and service areas are required, it would be coordinated by the applicant accordingly. Utilities, this location does have all necessary utilities present on site. Screening and buffering, not applicable in this case. Signs, any proposed signage would meet sign ordinance requirements. Required yard and other open space, staff finds that the property has sufficient space for an operation of meadery as the site is approximately 1.68 acres in size. General compatibility with adjacent properties and other property in the district. Staff finds that the use may not be compatible with adjacent properties as there are no other in-home occupations present within the subdivision that have been presented to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And number 9 is not applicable in this case. Conclusion, staff finds that the property provides sufficient space for the business of a meadery. Customers would not be visiting the property with deliveries to be handled by the owner. Staff would recommend if approved, these are items that we already have listed for anyone that is opening a in-home business. Standard practice for anyone, no matter what type of intensity for the business, they would come to Treasury to obtain a business license. We have them sign a permit through us as well that outlines general requirements for any person really. So just to outline what those are. No employees at the property other than those that live at the home. No more than one client at a time at the property. No outside storage of any items at any time in conjunction with this business. Signs are permitted with the maximum size of 4 square feet and shall adhere to the sign ordinance. And then just to reiterate, any federal and state licensing and permits would be required to be obtained by the applicant, as well as any local permits through the town would also be required as well. So this is approximate location of where the structure would be located on the site, kind of in this general vicinity. This is on the opposite side of the house, looking at the backyard. And this is a overhead image looking at the house, and then the rectangle here would be an approximate location as described by the applicant for the location planned for that structure for the business to be operated within. That's all I got.
All right. Any questions, explanations from Mitch, anybody? I think, Mitch, I've got 1 or 2 questions and comments. So, the 1,200 square foot building is allowed on a 1.7 acre lot based on our current ordinance. So the square footage isn't the issue or a concern. It's the use of the home business and the purpose, right, that we're considering, right?
Correct.
Okay, and we have a list generally in our ordinances of home businesses that are allowed in residential areas. Anything that's not on that list is a special exception, and this would fall in the special exception category. Specifically, meads, breweries, those kind of things are not listed as allowed specifically, so it would require a special exception to allow that, and that's kind of where we're at. But I want to make sure that the ordinance does not specifically allow even like a home brewery or anything like that. Any other questions, comments from anybody?
Have you had anybody reach out to y'all, any of the neighbors asking?
We've received some concerns from some of the property owners surrounding this regarding the use of the building within a residential district. There's been some conflicting information we've heard from them that's been thrown around regarding potential people visiting the site. So all of that can be addressed if you choose to approve this by no clients visiting the home, or it's up to you however you want to administer that. But yeah, we have had some concerns from some of the property owners surrounding this.
Okay. Anything else? All right, at this time, we'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request. Please state your name and address for our record, please.
Sure. My name is Mary Kay Matson. This is my husband, Michael Matson. We reside at 1001 Bolton Drive, and we are the sole owners of Illusion Meads. And you may remember us from last year when we tried to open on Hazelwood.
Yeah.
That situation between us and the property management just didn't work out. So we were hoping at this point that we could open a production-only facility on our property. There wouldn't be any clients coming to this location. If we understand that there could be questions or concerns with this being within the outskirts of a residential community, but we assure you that there are no dangers or hazards to the community, to our neighbors, or to the environment from our production process. This location will not have on-site customers, so it will not generate much traffic aside from occasional incoming deliveries or supplies, outgoing finished product for sale, most of which will either be handled by UPS, FedEx, the US Post Office. Therefore, there would be very little difference to what would be seen under normal residential traffic flow, so then would also have no need for parking. Like, we're not going to have any customers, so we wouldn't need any parking or anything of that sort. Since the meadery is defined as a winery, per the federal TTB, the FDA, the Tennessee ABC, and the Department of Agriculture and Dairy, there are very strict rules and guidelines for alcohol production and sale, and rightfully so. Each of these departments enforce rules and regulations that would allow for such operations, and which we would strictly adhere to, but to which also would require the initial approval of any local township ordinances or zoning. One such example of an already existing establishment within the state of Tennessee is Trazo Meadery, located in Clarksville. Their production facility is located on their residential property, yet their tap room was later opened in the downtown Clarksville area. We would like to be given the opportunity to file suit in a similar manner so that we can add Smyrna to the rapidly growing list of meadery locations throughout the U.S. Sometime soon, then, we would also be opening a tap room somewhere in a retail space. Thank you. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
All right. Any questions for Mr. or Mrs. Mattson? I've got a couple. So I think you said in your letter that employees pretty much are you guys. No plans to hire anyone, have assistants or anything for?
Correct. The only time we plan to hire is once we do open a tap room. At that point, we might need, staff. But that's going to be in the future. Right now, we just want to focus on our production facility, and then hopefully be able to open that retail location somewhere else within Smyrna, C2 zoning of some sort, preferably.
What do you expect the production to be? You mentioned in your letter, bottles even up to keg size. How much are we talking about? A week, a month? What are we talking about there?
Well, we have the tanks that we have. Our biggest tanks are 80-gallon tanks, which for technically a winery is pretty small for a winery tank. But we have tanks from 80-gallon all the way down to 5-gallon. So it's gonna be more of a micro winery type of thing, where we do plan to sell kegs to local bars, restaurants, which we already have people in the area they're wanting me to commit to them. I'm putting our product on tap at their either the brewery or their tap houses. Yeah. In addition to that, we do plan to sell bottles online, and all our distribution is going to be self-distribution. So the state of Tennessee allows self-distribution for up to 100 miles from the production facility. Or option B is we can get a production or a distributor, but once we do, we're locked in, and we can't ever self-distribute ourselves.
So in theory, kegs would be leaving the facility by you taking them to
Correct.
wherever.
Yeah, we have a pickup truck and a minivan. We just take them to wherever in the local area would want to purchase them from us and drop them off, so.
Gotcha.
And we do, and any outgoing sales, such as purchases from online, that would be leaving the house, would be going through FedEx or UPS. Right now, the federal government is contemplating whether or not to allow the U.S. Postal to start delivering alcohol. That's going to probably take some time to sort out, but for the time being, FedEx is usually the go-to. So it's not going to create any more influx of traffic than,
The daily Amazon deliveries that we get at the house, and
Right.
the company that we would use for the online sales is called Vino Shipper. Super popular company with a lot of wineries all across the United States.
Okay. Any other questions?
And no home pickup sales.
No.
That's what I was gonna ask.
I have a
Okay,
question.
thank you.
Hi, thanks for coming. Would you consider your, the use to be commercial in character?
commercial character.
Have a commercial character, yes. Is it a commercial use?
Well, I
I
would,
would say yes.
I would lean more towards a yes on that. I mean, it's not a home brewery, so we would be, it would be for profit, and we would be shipping it out to different facilities that are also commercial facilities. So I would lean that it's more towards the commercial side.
Okay. I didn't have I saw that it's a metal building, but that was in the description, but I didn't see any proposed, plan that would really describe the exterior. I mean, what are your plans as far as causing it to fit in
Very
with the
minimal.
residential character of the neighborhood?
Right now, we haven't put everything out. I haven't brought in too many people yet, because first we wanted to get the approval. It's gonna be a step-by-step process, which is gonna be, it's gonna cost some money to do each step.
Well, I think what he's
So-
asking is the building going to stand out in the neighborhood is what you're
No,
asking.
because we have no customers, we don't need there's no need for lighting,
Nothing flashy, just
signage.
basically like a big garage type looking thing in the back
Maybe
of the
just
house.
enough for our delivery drivers to know that we're actually there, maybe a separate mailbox, something like that, but it's something minimal. We are not gonna stand out. In fact, when the street we live on, that little cul-de-sac right there, you can see it's very hard to even see between those two houses there.
Where the building's gonna be.
Right, and this side here, where the picture cuts off, the other side of my fence line is actually Rutherford County. And it's just an open 11 acres, wooded, so you're not gonna see anything from over that way. And if we need to put in landscaping, around it for our surrounding neighbors, we're willing to do that as well.
So it's my understanding then that you don't have much detail in mind yet as far as the nature of the building. You just know it's probably going to be metal, and you know where you want it located is approximately, and you know the size. Anything else you can tell us about the building?
It's just gonna be 1,200 square foot. It'll be, an engineered building for the area. It'll be rated, hurricane rated, wind rated, and things like that.
And we're gonna have one overhead door and like a people door, and that's about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
very, very minimal. And of course, the Department of Agriculture is our main sanitation enforcement, I guess. So they actually have a whole list of requirements, things I can do, things I can't do. So I've already been in communication with them. What we've drawn up so far and what Mitch has presented is acceptable to them, which is our next step. But other than that, there's really no hazards involved. There's no contamination, leakage, anything like that.
There's not even any noise. I mean, it's a quiet type
No
of
noise,
thing.
no aromas, no anything.
Yeah. So as far as the footprint of the building, you know how far it'll be off the setback? Have you gotten that far?
Yeah, I flagged it, just like a preliminary type thing, just to get a visual. And right now, we're sitting 15 feet off the neighbor's property line, which I believe I think it's 10 feet is the setback for that. The opposite side, we had thought about putting it on the opposite side there. There's already a sewer, and the sewer system runs from right behind my house, and then there's another sewer up that way, so it kind of runs. We just thought it would be easier, once the plumbers came in, to tap into the sewer line on that side of the house. But we didn't want to get into additional setbacks because of the sewer line, because once we're at 10 feet now, because of the sewer, we'll have to be an additional 5. So that's kind of making things a little narrow there. So we decided to move it on that side where there poses no problem.
And we can just extend the driveway out too, so it would be
Yeah.
easier that way as well.
Have you had anyone assess the risk of flooding to that structure?
Well, this particular spot is considered a flood zone. I've already been in communication with FEMA on that. There's 2 ways we're gonna go with that. First of all, we're gonna try to get that property amended because we had the original elevation certificate that we believe is incorrect. So we plan to have another surveyor come out, remeasure everything, make the amendment to FEMA. If that still doesn't pass through FEMA, the other option is I can still build there. I would just have to raise that up to the elevation
Required elevation
baseline.
level.
Yeah, which would in our case, would only be about 2 to 3 feet. So it's really not a whole lot to raise it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
But nothing? All right. Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak for or against this request? I see you're thinking about it. You certainly don't have to.
Let me wait.
Okay. This time we'll close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals. I do have one question, and I don't know, Mitch, if you can answer this or if Kevin has to, but if this was being built in a commercial area, what zone would it be? Where would this belong without being, would it be industrial, C2, C4?
C2.
C2?
Yeah, we approved the zoning ordinance amendment, which has been a couple of years ago now, somewhere, was this type of use, like a brewery, whatever type of alcohol that would be being manufactured. There's a limit to the size of how much you can, under the state law, there's a limit to how much you can actually make every year before you cross over into being a true brewery, like a
Right.
Anheuser-Busch or someone. But within our ordinance, it would be allowed as a BZA review in the C2 zone. And there's a few stipulations in there as far as, again, within that as far as screening and, from
buffering,
residential
et cetera.
areas and things like that, but
Right.
but it would be in a C2 zone. And so, this structure, I'm not a building code expert, but it most likely would have to fall under some commercial building codes as far as that, because obviously they're manufacturing an alcoholic beverage, so there would have to be whatever requirements from there, from a plumbing, sprinkler, I don't know, all those kind of things, ADA accessibility or whatever it is you may have to get into. I don't know what they would have to get into. But that's something that we would, if this is approved, we would have to work with them on as they go through the building code process.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Excuse me. So the reason I asked that question is one of the things that the council in general has always tried to apply is anytime we have residential, I guess abutting commercial, is we like layering, right? So we will have residential, and then usually it's a PRD or light commercial, and then we'll go into the heavier commercials like C2 or industrial. So that my biggest concern is essentially what this is approving is a C2 use in a residential zone. And that's, even though it may not be listed that way, that's essentially what we would be approving. And normally we would have reservations about approving C2 zone that backs up to residential R3 or R2 or R1. So even if it was just adjacent, I'm not sure planning or council would even approve it, much less in the middle of it. So that's the concern that I see, is even understanding that it's potentially low commercial, right? Not a lot of noise, essentially Amazon and FedEx and those kind of drivers still. I understand everything that's being explained, but it is still essentially a commercial, a C2 use in a residential zone. And that's the concern that I think that I have. I was looking at, I've got several documents here that I pulled some ordinances, specifically in the R3, is the ordinance specifically has the purpose to exclude from the district any buildings or structures that are planned as having commercial characteristics and use. And so the ordinance specifically, the R3 zoning specifically excludes that purpose. So not only would we be approving a use that we haven't approved in the past, we would also be essentially obliterating the R3 zoning for this particular piece of property. So that's kind of where we are. I don't know what questions or comments you guys may have.
I mean, I don't really think we want to go against city ordinances for this.
Well, I mean, that's what the exception process is for, right?
Yeah, I agree.
But they also, as far as I know, and I asked Kevin this earlier, I don't think we've ever had a request like this, at least not in the 10 years I've been doing this. So that's the other piece is, this potentially sets a precedent going forward as well.
Which we typically try to steer clear of.
Correct. So you guys got comments, questions, concerns? Motion? Anything?
No comments or questions that haven't been asked? No.
No, I think y'all have, Jason did a good job of asking the right stuff.
That's why we pay him.
Right. And I appreciate y'all do. I'm gonna have to make a motion to deny
For what reason?
based on, I do not, probably the best way to put it, want to go against the city ordinance on this, changing, any kind of C2 going into an R3
Okay.
and setting the precedent going forward. Jason, is that?
We can make that work. I can restate it as, I think we have a motion to deny, due to the commercial type use of this facility in a residential zone.
Well, I think, first of all, I think if you're asking me about how to state the motion, I think there's a few ways you could go about that. I think you could also look at other aspects of the ordinance as well, such as what a home occupation is and whether it falls within that category, which would include an occupational or profession that is accessory to residential use and customarily carried on in a dwelling unit or in a building or other structure accessory to a dwelling unit. And that home occupation that goes back to your customary incidental home occupation use. But this doesn't even meet the definition of home occupation. And certainly it's not customary to have this type of use at the level at which they're describing it anyway. I think the board could make that finding that this would not be customary for a residential area and has a more commercial character. And that's really that's included, I think, under what you might be talking about as far as commercial. And sounded like the overriding concern that you all had. It's just, so yes, based on that, I think your motion could be something to the effect of, I would move to deny based on the commercial character of the use, period, so.
Want to try that?
Sure.
Restate it for us then.
All right, so I will make a motion to deny based on the commercial character use in a residential area.
Okay, we have a motion to deny, based on the commercial character use in a residential area. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No, the motion has been denied. Mitch, we have, what do we got next? Comments?
I'm sorry, Chair, I may not have heard you correctly. Would you restate the outcome of the motion, please?
Sure, the motion has been denied.
The motion to do what?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're correct. The motion
just wanna
to
make sure.
deny has been approved.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, I mentioned it.
I wanted to be
Yeah, the-
clear for our.
The request
for our
has
rec-
been denied, you're right,
Thank you.
but the,
Thanks.
the motion to deny has been approved. Yeah, you get negative, double negatives kind of mess you up there. Thank you, keeping us straight. Next item on our agenda is staff comments or other business.
I'm all
Do you have
good.
anything? Nope. We do have, I'll just mention, at least one open position on the Board of Zoning Appeals. Our month for appointment is March, so if you're interested in serving on this board, please go to the town website and look for an application. Otherwise, we will stand adjourned. Thank you.